everyone. Welcome to the open forum for Provost candidate Dean Donna Arnett. I'm Nancy Cox. I'm co-chairing the search for Provost along with Eric Monday. And I'd like to make a few announcements. One is the format will be that first Dean Arnett will present her comments and her vision for 15 or 20 minutes, I think. And then the floor will be open for questions. There are two ways to ask questions. One is that you can go to one of the microphones on either side of the room. The other is that you can raise your hand to receive a note card, write your question, and someone will come along to pick it up and bring it to me. For those watching via live stream, you can submit questions by emailing provostsearch@uky.edu, with Provost Search being all one word, or you can use Twitter to tweet at UKY Provost. The search website is uky.edu/president/provost search. And all of our community members are encouraged to provide feedback, and we would like for you to do that and to do it by noon on Tuesday, December 12th. After that time, those sources of input will be closed. So please comment, and without further ado, I'd like to help welcome Dean Donna Arnett.
Thank you, Nancy. This is an exciting time in the history of the University of Kentucky as the landscape of higher education is changing rapidly, and future success of our institution requires leadership that is quick, nimble, innovative, and invests in the right strategy. As a first-generation student born in London, Kentucky, I recognize and respect the critical role that this university plays in transforming the lives of our students, our state, and our nation. I am deeply and passionately committed to the vision set forth by our President Capelluto to be the university for Kentucky. My philosophy of administrative leadership emerges from my own personal deep sense of core values, namely excellence, professionalism, innovation, and diversity. My experience for 10 years as a faculty member at the University of Minnesota, my 11 years as chair and associate dean for academic and strategic programs, and now dean here at the university, have prepared me for understanding the critical roles of undergraduate and graduate education, research, and service. My training as an epidemiologist and my role as president of the American Heart Association have provided me great skills in analysis and strategy. My leadership qualities align well with the vision for the University of Kentucky, namely to transform the lives of our students and advance the Commonwealth we serve and beyond through our teaching and learning, diversity and inclusion, discovery, research and creativity, promotion of health, and deep community engagement. There's probably an easier way to do this, but we'll just go like this. As requested by the search committee, I've organized my presentation today to address the disruptions facing higher education and my thoughts and priorities for how I would address those disruptions. Disruptions need not be viewed in a negative light. In fact, disruptions offer opportunities for us to co-create solutions. I will address my vision for undergraduate and graduate education through the lens of these disruptions, state my vision for diversity and inclusion, and my priorities for the future. So let's get started with disruptions in higher education. There are substantial changes occurring in the demographics and needs of our students. In Kentucky and neighboring states, there is a declining or flat high school graduation rate, meaning there are fewer students to draw from our surrounding region for our entering freshman class. There is also the potential, both in a good and bad way, for students to transfer in and out of the university, as 1 in 3 students transfer at least once during their college career. There's also the well-known shrinking middle class, meaning that the undergraduate and graduate education is becoming out of the reach for many people. And for those who do come to the university, about 1 in 3 suffer significant stress, and 1 in 5 suffer from depression. I have extensive experience in the area of promoting healthy behaviors in my role as president of the American Heart Association, where I led the organization's first worksite wellness research and implementation program. There are many disruptions in the delivery models and the type of instructional models needed. I have created fully online programs, and I recognize the challenges inherent in setting up such programs, and also how to make these programs state-of-the-art. The traditional approaches to education and instruction will be insufficient to match the needs of our future students. Working students need access to online education. Students who have some college credit and are working full-time need access to complete degrees outside of the traditional model. Employers need options for online certificate programs to educate their workforce. There is a real demand for stackable credits or a la carte programs. This will require collaboration, interdisciplinary work, innovation, and nimbleness in execution. I will work side by side with faculty and staff to understand how we can create these programs at UK, and most importantly, how we can execute them. And for students who stay with us in the traditional model, we need to fully embrace the flipped classroom model to enhance our student engagement, to allow students to consume lecture materials at their own pace, to provide for the instructor being present while students apply this new knowledge in the classroom itself, and all of these lead together to improve student learning outcomes. Support for research is another disruption. For those securing extramural research funds from the National Institutes of Health or other funding agencies, the pay lines are low, and the average age of an individual securing their first R01 has risen dramatically over the past 2 decades and now approaches 50 years of age. This means faculty are writing more and more grants to be successful. For those that do research that does not have a typical funding stream, there are different challenges, but in all cases, the issue is one of support and the constant tension between securing research opportunities while balancing teaching. Being in the shoes of faculty, and I was there for quite a while, this feels like being tugged in 2 opposing directions. So I have been running research programs since I was a faculty member at the University of Minnesota, and continued that research portfolio at the University of Alabama at Birmingham while remaining as chair of the department and teaching classes and being president of the American Heart Association. So I fully understand the position that faculty are in when they're being pulled in so many directions and having to work through finding that right balance. There are unrelenting pressures on higher education from state budgets, and this trend is unlikely to change, particularly in Kentucky with our current pension crisis. And it's particularly concerning given the pressures nationally to restrict growth in tuition and fees. There are also pressures on the federal side of the funding picture. Just yesterday in Inside Higher Education, Moody's downgraded higher education's outlook from stable to negative, predicting that expenses will outpace revenue growth in the immediate future, and with particular impact on public universities. They also cite cuts to federal financial programs that will exacerbate problems. To top it off, the new tax bill currently being negotiated could hurt fundraising efforts, increase borrowing costs, and depress graduate student enrollment. And I know our president was in Washington this week with several deans who are here in the room advocating on behalf of our students. From the student perspective, the picture is not good. Student loan debt has escalated substantially in the past decade, and the current average debt for our students in the Commonwealth of Kentucky is about $28,000. That overall average, though, hides some important differences along gender and ethnic lines. This graph demonstrates the percentage calculated by taking a person's total student loan debt and dividing it by their annual income 1 year after graduation. On average, student loan debt balances of African Americans are the largest percentage of income. Here, worst for African American women who have to work 111% in order to cover their debt, whereas Asian men have to cover only 65%. Now, while the picture may look bleak given all these disruptions, I view these disruptions as opportunities, and I'll discuss some of them now. My passion really lies in faculty and student success. I shared in the earlier forum this morning, when I was 27, I had a stroke. And that life-changing event really fueled my desire to have impact and meaning in life and be a contribution to others. And where I have fueled that in my academic career, first with my students when I was a faculty member, then to my faculty as I developed them as a chair, and now to my college as dean. So my vision for the area of Provost is to really invest in both faculty and student success. And this aligns well with the progress that we've already articulated in our strategic plan for 2015 and 2020, and success towards that plan is already being realized. From realignment of the 4 pillars of student and academic success, which include academic success, financial stability for our students, belonging and engagement, and wellness, to fostering excellence in graduate education, to expanding our scholarship and research, and promoting including excellence. Before launching new initiatives, my leadership strategy is to partner and collaborate with others so that I can fully understand the activities within each of the individual colleges and articulate a more complete strategic vision based on my interactions. But let's discuss some of my ideas for continuing student and academic success. So let's look at the solutions possibly to our changing demographics. So with fewer high school graduates and the in and outs transfers potentially, we must expand to other markets in order to maintain a vibrant student body. So we would be, in my vision, identifying partners from which we could partner for transfer students. We would also be working with adult students to identify those who have completed many college credits, but need more college credits in order to graduate, called completer degrees. I also would like to partner with business. I would propose that we would create a council of CEOs. And that council of CEOs could have a multitude of functions, but one of them would be to help find support for lower income students. So we could create programs, for instance, to provide certifications in specific technical fields for students right out of high school, and then work with these companies to continue their education all the way through the bachelor's program. We could look at doing curricular alignment so that we could accommodate on-the-job training so those skill sets are mirrored in terms of credit hour production for the student. I would also, given my concern over the well-being of our students and the high levels, particularly of stress and depression, work to evaluate the extant well-being programs that are going on campus and utilize existing campus resources through the amazing faculty, students, and staff that we already have to build quality initiatives to address these wellness issues. Now let's look at delivery and type of instruction. It is my vision to create online completer degree programs and certificate programs with the understanding that we have to meet students where they are. Education now is going to be a lifelong experience. Students change jobs every 4 years to 5 years, and those job changes require new skills. I would increase the use of flipped classrooms to increase student engagement, to create applied learning in the classroom, and improve student outcomes. I would focus on training needs of the workforce. So increasing our training in soft skills is something that employers are requesting. So that means augmenting the technical knowledge that we're providing in our degree programs with problem solving and teamwork. We really need to train students critical thinking skills and broader skills in communication. I would enhance the integration of curricular and co-curricular activities, including the LLPs. And I would partner with deans and chairs to invest in training faculty with the teaching skills to embrace these new technologies. In terms of enhanced research support, I would continue the committee currently working with high-impact practices because we know undergraduate research is a key component of success for our students. I would work with the Vice President for Research and deans to find more opportunities for training grants for our graduate students, either NIH or NSF or other foundations. I would create more internal pilot grant opportunities, including opportunities for non-health related research. And I would partner with the Vice President for Research and colleges to provide support in areas where extramural funding is not possible. I would also partner with the Vice President for Research and colleges for bridge funding. And I would want to start a new program to incentivize multidisciplinary work, much like the College of Medicine has done with their VIP program, where you bring units from across campus together to address a problem. And that incentive creates that multidisciplinary team that can be more competitive for extramural funding. There's some other unique aspects of graduate student success that I think are important. You know, from my experience as a mentor and faculty member, I know that graduate education to be successful must go hand in hand with a strong research portfolio. I would continue the Blue Ribbon Task Force and work with that task force to understand the recommendations and work through an implementation plan. I would work with the Vice President for Research to identify areas of research excellence where we are already strong and upon which we could build to grow our national and international reputation. I would increase utilization of the current University Scholars Program, where 12 undergraduate credits could be counted toward a graduate degree. You know, about nearly half of students who enter undergraduate program plan to go to graduate school. So let's get them engaged early and create an easy way to finish a master's degree and their undergraduate degree in 5 years. And I would consider creation of a College of Graduate and Interdisciplinary Education for certificates, programming that could address those soft skills, and that would all be contingent, of course, on recommendations with the Blue Ribbon Task Force. In terms of increased cost, as provost, I would be a strong advocate for both at the state and federal level for support of higher education. I would relentlessly pursue improved graduation rates. And it's not just about retaining tuition and fees. It's really about changing the lives of our students. We know in Kentucky that a college graduate earns about $64,000 a year compared to about $31,000 for those with a high school education. So by tirelessly and relentlessly pursuing improved graduation rates, we're overall helping the Commonwealth. I would also want to focus on value. We need more transparency about the cost of education and the job placement for within each degree program, and understand that value from that degree. I would really want to also focus on job placements for students. We really need students to have internship opportunities. It's good for the student, but it's also good for the business to evaluate our candidates. And working with that Council of CEOs, I would work to build those partnerships so that our students would have the best opportunities. And finally, in terms of support, financial support for students, I would continue the UK LEADS, which are the needs-based scholarships. And I would also work as the flagship to continue academic scholarships. Diversity and inclusivity is one of my core values. As a department chair, I was able to retain and recruit and retain an exceptionally diverse faculty. And when I left the University of Alabama at Birmingham, we had a minority white faculty. So I know it's possible. I would work tirelessly to increase the ethnic diversity on campus and address other important areas of inclusivity. I would look for strategies to further inclusive excellence. We already have such a program called the Persistence Grant Program, which is utilized disproportionately by underrepresented minority students. I would work also to attract and retain underrepresented minority faculty and continue and most likely increase the faculty salary assistant plan for deans hiring minority faculty. So that brings the summary of the disruptions facing higher education and some of the solutions I would bring to bear if I were selected as your provost. For priorities for the future, I would continue to strengthen, in summary, I've said many of these things already. I would continue to strengthen the undergraduate student success by focusing on retention, graduation, more undergraduate research and internships, and increased job placement. I would strengthen the graduate and professional education. I would continue to advance our research enterprise, including non-health related research. And I would collaborate shoulder to shoulder with deans and chairs to prioritize new growth and efficiency opportunities. Thank you for your attention.
We now have opportunity for questions. If somebody will raise their hand, I'll bring you this microphone. If wants to kick it off. Okay, wait, okay.
You spoke about disruptions. The landscape is changing rapidly. There's a lot of new pressures on academia. And one of them that I see, and I'm sure everyone else has noticed this, is that there is an increasing call from governmental bodies to do to emphasize a more vocational approach to undergraduate education. And you mentioned evaluating the value of a degree and future earning potential. I would like to hear your views on the merits of the university taking a more vocational approach toward undergraduate education versus a solid disciplinary liberal arts undergraduate education. And if you favor a more vocational track, what are the vocations, what are the fields that you think the university should move toward with our undergraduate program?
That is a great question. And, one of my strategies, first, I'm collaborating. So I would be wanting to work with faculty and deans to identify those areas where that vocational aspect could be realized. Those were areas that I mentioned for potential growth. I wouldn't think as the flagship we want to go exclusively into vocational training, right? We are still the flagship university of the state, and the liberal arts education will remain a strong powerhouse within our overall portfolio of programs.
Would you rather we just go? If you don't mind, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hi. So I appreciate that you mentioned care for students as part of your program, and I'm interested in how you would foresee integrating that objective into an increased emphasis on distance learning. How are you going to approach more distance students on campus and caring for them? So, for example, there's a researcher named Sarah Goldrick-Robb whose work on food insecurity on campus has gotten some attention recently. How are we going to know if distance students are going to need our help if we get more and more of them, and how would you address that?
That's a great question. Typically, the distant student is already the person working and doing distant education. It's a very different market. So presumably they have at least the financial underpinnings to launch into an additional degree program. You know, I could think of creative ways that we could look at surveys to determine if the needs are consistent with what we're seeing with the needs of our students on campus. So we would first have to look at the problem in our online education platforms to see if they exist. So survey first, research. I'm good at research.
I'm going to go with one of the cards. Oh, sorry. You've outlined extensively your plan to collaborate with colleges and faculty. What is your plan to connect with the co-curricular side of the house?
So I am a strong advocate for staff. I met with staff council last night. Staff council, let me know at that meeting that we focus a lot on faculty success and a lot on student success. And the staff are the ones in the middle, like the middle child who's never recognized. So I can comment about what and this doesn't answer the curricular or co-curricular question, but it addresses staff who manage that area within the university. So I've engaged our staff council to be a very active staff council. We had morale issues when I came into my college, and we have reorganized and restructured that college. So it's taken a lot of change management in order to move us forward in a positive direction. So here are some of the things I have done and how I would work in the future with staff executing co-curricular activities with our students. So one thing I've done is have coffees with the dean. And I rotate every month to a different area because, like others on campus, we are located in 7 different buildings. And so I go to different buildings so that I make sure staff don't have to come to me. That's one area. We've planned social activities where we've gone out to a baseball game together. But those are on the social end. I'm very concerned, and I think this applies at the university level as well, of how do we develop staff? What is a trajectory for developing staff that keeps them within the university and lets them progress? And so one of the new pieces that I'm doing within my college is I've created, as part of our strategic plan, we're creating a mentoring program for faculty and a parallel mentoring program for staff. And that process is being co-led by our staff council and our faculty council, working together. I also released $30,000 for the staff council to develop professional development opportunities for the staff. And so those are being overseen by the staff and managed by them.
Good afternoon. I was interested in your discussion of a College of Interdisciplinary Studies. And so I'd like to ask you what your understanding of interdisciplinarity is and how that differs from a broad-based liberal arts education that encompasses social sciences and humanities scholarship.
Thank you for that question. I'll give you an example of an interdisciplinary program that we have worked with in the College of Public Health with the Gatton School of Business and the College of Engineering. So the title is, it's a certificate program. And that certificate program is used to create, it's called Value in Healthcare. So we've created, from the lean systems engineering perspective, coursework in that, from the financial aspects within Gatton, and from the health systems aspects in public health, this multidisciplinary program on building value for healthcare. So that's just one example. So you're taking disparate colleges and disparate disciplines and piecing together information for that specific market.
So how does that multidisciplinary perspective differ from an interdisciplinarity?
as deans, we've had this discussion, is there a difference? And I'm using them interchangeably. But they are different. What I'm describing is, I think would fit along the line of multidisciplinary, because we haven't come together and created something new where we all work together in an interdependent way.
I think I'm going to alternate with the cards, and then who had their hand up right here? You, okay. Well, here's one. With the restructuring of undergraduate education came a merging of academic advising and career services. The merger is still very much in process. Do you think it is headed in the right direction? What factors do you think are important for next steps?
So we are in the midst of change management. You're right. I'm entering, in my discussions with staff, the staff and Senate Council, we're really in the middle of that process. I would not want to change in the middle again, so I would be working closely with the Associate Provost to really understand those offices, to understand the issues that staff are facing in those offices, and to then create most likely a way to communicate and set up platforms for communication so that we can fix the problems iteratively. So I would have an iterative approach: listen, understand, fix.
Yeah, do you consider graduate students primarily students or primarily employees? And can you compare that to how you feel the university currently envisions their role?
So in my work, graduate students were students there to learn. The way that I think is most effective is working, the way I executed training in my own lab was to have several faculty working together with postdocs and pre-docs in a multidisciplinary setting so that we could train effective team members who could go out and execute science when they graduated. So they worked in that team. I didn't view them as employees. And I heard this morning that the graduate students have organized themselves, but I think there's more work that could be done in terms of graduate students working together organizationally to let their voices be known at the level of the provost. I know now they're doing that. It goes through an undergraduate committee before it comes to the provost. So I would hope to fix that, to have a more direct link to the provost. I'd be interested to hear from you whether you feel that around campus students are treated, graduate students, as employees.
You want my opinion now?
Yes.
Oh, so I would argue that our primary role is as employees, but the university currently likes to have it both ways, and when it's advantageous, sometimes treat graduate students as students, but at other times it's advantageous to treat them as employees. But primarily, we're doing things like teaching classes and running the research that helps generate prestige for the university. So I envision, in large part, graduate students are primarily employees.
Thank you.
I'll go to another card. I'm on this side of the room, but anybody over there can talk too. But as a land-grant university with a tripart mission focused on research, education, and outreach, could you share your vision for the outreach component?
As I understand from the Provost Tracy, there's a current evaluation now going on of extension. And I would want to understand that report, talk to the people who participated in its creation before creating a strategic direction for extension. I recognize an essential part of our university.
Hi, Dr. Arnett. You mentioned that the pool of available students to enroll as undergraduates in the university is shrinking, and that's true nationwide. I wonder if, and at the same time, roughly 25% of Kentuckians have four-year college degrees. So clearly there's more that can be done in increasing the pool of eligible and ready students from the high schools. Would you be interested in working with faculty in new ways to incentivize them to work with high schools to increase the pool of available students?
That sounds like a great idea. So I would be for that. I'd have to think through what the incentive would be, but certainly whenever faculty get invested and engaged, there's greater success rates for recruitment and matriculation of students. So I would be open to exploring those kinds of opportunities.
Thanks.
Another one from the card. What were your successes and challenges as Dean of Public Health, and how did you address the challenges?
All of those laughing voices are from Public Health. Okay. So there are so many to choose from. So so the challenges. We had, and there's so many to choose from. We had a dysfunctional business office. I will start there. When I arrived, and we had never had a ground-up strategic plan when I arrived. By that I mean people from students and staff and faculty partnering together to co-create a strategic plan together. And we had no support for faculty in terms of faculty mentoring for students, advising. So the work of pretty much everything was falling on the faculty. So there was no grants management in the college. There was people who could submit grants, but after you got them, you were on your own. And no help for IRB. So I have restructured to address those issues. We have a new organization where I created an office of research and have a director of research operations with pre and post award falling under that office. I created a new business office plan, so we have now a business officer with fiscal payroll specialist, and then to address the geographic spread of our college, we created positions in the three major buildings in the college that do the purchasing, travel arrangements. So they're in the buildings with faculty, so that faculty had someone to go to when they needed help. And that restructure has tremendously helped on the business center. We're still growing and coming out of it, but that was one area of success. The other is that by cost savings, by downsizing, we were able to create support for student success that had never been in our college. We had an undergraduate advisor, but no advisors for our professional degrees or doctoral degree programs. So we've restructured that office and added advisors for two advisors at the doctoral level, and restructured that office to maximize student success. So that has been a success, and that's been a more recent success. And we have an amazing strategic plan that was co-created. We created our vision together and our mission together, and we launched that plan July 1st of this year.
Him and then you.
Hi, you mentioned council of CEOs that you would want to create.
Yeah.
I was interested in a couple things about this. First, like, what would be the primary metrics that you would see to determine which CEOs would be the best fit for that council? And you said there would be other things that it might do in addition to working with scholarship stuff. So, like, what kinds of other things would you like to see that council do?
So I've had experience with the American Heart Association where we had what was called, it was created when I was president, the CEO Roundtable. And that roundtable was created at the point when the Affordable Care Act was coming of age, and CEOs were concerned about healthcare and how they would deliver healthcare to their employees. What we found during that whole process is that by bringing CEOs together, you understand the needs of those employers, and it went well beyond what they were worried about in terms of healthcare. So I would look to find the largest employers in the state for those CEOs. So size would be one, and companies that are hiring our graduates as a second requirement. And my idea is that they would help us to think through what kinds of programming they would need that we could create and that they could fund.
Hi. Over the past 3 years, we've seen an enormous investment in the physical landscape of the university. We have brand new residence halls. We have more of them. We have a brand new state-of-the-art student center under construction. We have a really outstanding science educational facility. I see all of that as being the infrastructure for residential-based education. So now when I hear that the university is about to embark on a new commitment to online education, the question is, how do we do both of those? And are you worried at all that it may actually be mutually exclusive in some way? Could there be a disruption that we create for ourselves? And just in general, how would you balance the commitment to online education versus on-the-ground education?
So what I've done in my past is identify areas where online education is in demand. So it wouldn't be wholesale, everything converts into online education at the University of Kentucky. It may be that there's a need in the community for an accounting degree that could be online, and we would work to create that degree program. It could be the certificate program that I discussed that would create a stackable certificate. It would not be wholesale everything at UK converting to online. I would work with the deans and work with faculty to understand where are the demands, where can we grow that specific program to increase our student numbers and revenue.
Another card. How will you act upon the graduate student blue ribbon recommendations to improve the graduate student experience at UK?
Well, I have to see it first.
Right.
So I am passionate about doctoral education. One of my favorite awards on my CV is being Mentor of the Year from the Graduate School Dean's Mentor of the Year Award. So I'm a staunch advocate for graduate education. So I'm sad to hear that graduate students are sensing that they're treated more as employees rather than students. So I think there's a lot more listening that I would have to do first to understand what the issues are. And hopefully the task force will have good recommendations. But I would also want to have open forums with graduate students so that I can fully understand your positions.
Another one from the card. What is your vision on allocation of TA lines, given some colleges like A&S have enormous FTE for student instruction?
That's been an area I know that the Provost has been investigating, evaluating, and it's part of this Blue Ribbon panel. I'm one of those colleges that has almost none, so I wanted to be on that group, but I got put on the Growth and Innovation group instead. So historically, from my understanding, these lines have been historically allocated, and I would want to realign those programs with where the needs are for teaching, and also work to understand where we can build in more research graduate assistant positions.
From the card, how would you expand our markets both nationally and globally, e.g. international and out of state?
So we have a associate provost for internationalization, Sue Roberts. And Sue has been very active in this space and just hired someone specifically to manage relationships around the globe. So I would be encouraging of more growth in the international space. We're very strong already in education abroad, but I do think there's more growth potential for bringing students in from other countries. And one of the challenges that she faces is that we are only ranked very well in a few areas. So we have to build excellence so that we gain a reputation at the on the international platform so that we can recruit better students from abroad.
Hi, Dean Arnett. Thank you for participating in this forum today. I oversee our Stucker Career Center, and when I see your presentation, I'm both encouraged about the emphasis on job placement, and I'm nervous. And I guess I have a couple of questions. One is, we talk a lot about placement, and it talks about endpoints, rather than more of like a pathway to meaningful work, where I think a lot of our leading public universities are operating. So I wonder, in an economy and a marketplace that's far too dynamic and far too variant for a lot of degree holders to know how to operate, how do we prepare ourselves to position students for success? Because I think it's more of an engineering of the overall student experience versus maybe an emphasis on placement.
Yes, and you know, in my work with the task force on graduate education, that's just one area that I can bring to bear. What employers want are students who have those soft skills as well as the technical knowledge. And that's where I think we really need to grow our programming. The liberal arts are critical in that domain, right? You know, we need to be able to train people how to write, how to be effective communicators. My favorite class when I was an undergrad was creative writing. It taught me how to write and become a successful researcher. And so I think it's in that space of finding that way to take the strengths of this university and package courses together with our technical degree courses that enable students to be successful. Because students have to learn how to think critically. They're going to be changing jobs frequently and having to have that nimbleness to do that.
So, not really a question, but maybe in the spirit of discussion, since this forum doesn't really lend itself to that, I'd like to follow up on the TA answer. And the question was framed in a way that I think maybe made you answer it in the employee vein. But I'd suggest that TAs also play a very different role in some parts of the university, perhaps in the social sciences and the humanities, where they are the ways in which you can form a core of a graduate student cohort for graduate education. And I wonder if you maybe speak a little, right, but you answered the question on the TAs as labor. And so I guess I'd like to push you a little bit to think about where graduate education fits in the social sciences and the humanities, which don't quite fit into the get a grant, have an RA model, and how graduate education fits there.
So from my understanding, though, teaching assistants have very specific, back to the job issue, have very specific descriptions and very specific teaching responsibilities associated with their grade. Is that correct?
So I'll make it a shorter question.
Okay.
Teaching assistants are more expensive than lecturers. And so you answered the question by saying, I'd see where the teaching needs are to reassign the teaching assistants. If I was king, I would just hire more lecturers and fund graduate education in a different way. So I'm pushing you to think a little bit about graduate education, not in a kind of a science lab model, but what the role of graduate education is at this university in the social sciences and the humanities.
So first, since I haven't been in humanities, I can't answer that question. What I could promise you is I would work with your chair to fully understand that before making a recommendation. You know, research takes all forms and shapes and sizes. So as we're producing doctoral level work in those spaces, you have to have the time to do that research.
Another one from the card. At the earlier forum, you stated as being in support of stipends of living wage for graduate employees at UK. Can you please clarify what living wage means in this context for you?
So a living wage to me means being able to pay rent on a modest place, have food and have health insurance, and a little bit of fun. You are graduate students, after all. I don't know what that translates to here, but in other areas, it's in the low 30s.
Another one from the card. The issue of student safety was highlighted last week with the arrest of an armed man on campus who had been threatening violence against a female student. What is your commitment to student safety, and what should be the proper response to events such as that one? And what do you think of the 11 other states that have taken steps to allow students with proper licenses to carry weapons on public university campuses? And then you can run for governor after you answer this.
Well, first of all, let me applaud that event last week. That was handled in an amazing way and communicated impeccably to our audience. So kudos to the president's office, and kudos to the person that saw something and spoke up, and to the police that got there so quickly. That was an amazing testament of an aware community that acted quickly and communicated effectively. So I am not in favor of having guns on campus. So just to be honest, we do not have guns here on campus now, and I would not be in favor of that. And I guess I won't be running for governor. But I didn't intend to anyway.
Another one from a card. Provost Tracy has argued that the special title series be eliminated. Extension faculty have questioned this approach. What is your stand on this issue?
I don't have a stand yet, and I'm not ducking the question. I do see the value in having a more simplified title series. When I came in as dean, you know, there were so many different ones to choose from that I was confused. It took a little while to figure all that out. But I do think extension is unique, and I would want to understand that specific title series. And I think that is the one that is the most unique out of all of the title series.
What are your views on the importance of philanthropy and public fundraising within a 21st century public land grant institution? How do you anticipate connecting deans, the provost office, and the philanthropy office to each other to move the university forward?
So I would be, if selected as provost, that intersection between philanthropy and the deans. You know, there are ways that as provost I could support deans in terms of philanthropy. There are metrics that we could create and measure as a provost in terms of dean evaluation. So all of those are possibilities. I also see the provost really being active in identifying opportunities for foundation grants for student scholarships. And I'm not sure how much we've done in that space yet, but I would like us to move in that direction. as well. But the provost typically is not the fundraiser, but I do see the provost working through and with the deans to accomplish that. It's a critical part of our mission. I know as dean, I am out there almost twice or 3 times a week, working at that very specific task. There's a question way in the back.
Oh, way back, okay.
So I'm encouraged to hear that a delegation from our university went to Washington to talk about graduate student education and how tax waivers really do a lot for our graduate students to alleviate a tax burden that they wouldn't normally see. What would you do in the event that a tax reform system went through that essentially placed a large tax burden on our graduate students? What would you do to help them or restructure the tuition fees here to help them?
So in the immediate aftermath of that law changing, and I honestly am hoping that it doesn't change, Eric King assured me that he was up till 3 a.m. that morning at the Senate voted in McConnell's ear, and McConnell removed it from the Senate version, and McConnell appointed the group that's doing the reconciliation with the House bill. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to be safe. In the event that we're not, I would have to work with the Vice President for Research and the Vice President for Financial Affairs and look to see what kind of short-term strategy we could create to support students in the short term. I'd also be working with Mike Ritchie. You know, within my college, we've had donors that have come forward to say, if you have students in urgent need, let us know and we will help. And so there may be those people within each of the colleges that we could tap in that instance of an urgent need that was created by that taxation bill.
This is going to be short. I appreciate you taking on this leadership, or try to take on this leadership role, stepping up, given the future. But why?
That is a great question. So, you know, I was born in Kentucky. My family's been in Kentucky since 1793. I am passionate about the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and we should be the university for Kentucky. So when I came here as dean, it was my first time, only job I interviewed for as dean, and I came back here to make an impact. You know, I told you when I had my stroke at 27, it fundamentally changed how I approached living every day. You know, I want to be a contribution, and I want to make a difference. And why I want to do this job is I think I have the skill set to collaborate and to build bridges across colleges with deans and with our associate provost and philanthropy and research and financial affairs. I think I have that skill set, and I think I could execute the vision that President Capelluto has stated. And I'm pretty passionate about that.
So we're going to do 2 more cards, and I would like to note that there were a whole lot of cards about graduate student aspects of this university. I didn't feel I could read them all. There were also quite a few more than I read concerning the consolidation of the units that report to the provost. So I thought I'd better just report that, just to apologize that I didn't read every single person's card. So here's the next to the last. What specifically do you plan to do to diversify the population and retain underrepresented minorities in terms of faculty, staff, and students? And how would you be supporting central offices that affect underrepresented minorities?
Thank you. So I would work closely with the Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion, Sanja Feast-Price, to identify the needs, particularly of our students. I know that Victor and Sanja have been meeting regularly with students to address particular areas of concern for our minority students. Staff also, again, that middle child between faculty and students, I think, I'm not sure that there has been any attention paid to that, but if there has, please let me know if I'm wrong. So there could be quick wins in terms of finding, creating community for minority groups amongst the staff domain, and I'd like to do something university-wide among faculty. What I found that when I was recruiting a diverse faculty at my prior position is once you got past 3, it became very easy to recruit because people felt when they came they were in a community. So creating that sense of community on campus is going to be critical, and it may have to happen across colleges.
The last question. Oops. Last question concerns accessibility and notes number of complaints and lawsuits filed with the Office of Civil Rights regarding accessibility. So the question is, where do you stand with respect to addressing and embracing accessibility and universal design campus-wide? Will accessibility and universal design be priority of yours? If so, at what level, high, medium, or low?
So the lawsuit that's being referred to is about our online coursework being in alignment with federal policy. And that is being addressed currently by the Associate Provost. And so that work is ongoing. I know this came into being when I was running online programs at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, and we had to quickly ramp up to become in compliance.